My name is Brian McGee. I am a storyboard artist living in Atlanta, Georgia.
When did you first decide that you wanted to be a storyboard artist?
88 actually, graduated high school, and for the next 2 years I figured out I didn't want to pursue music and I wanted to actually be an artist. Um, and also having always been a fan of comic books, I decided to marry that love of comics to my love of movies. When DVDs started coming out, and they had little storyboard sections, and so I could see how all the movies that I loved were done in storyboards.
Had you always been into drawing as a kid?
As far as I can remember, as long as I could hold a pencil, I think I was drawing before I could walk. Um, I was drawing on the cardboard backing of my grandmother's stocking packages. And I remember I had this giant green pencil with the Statue of Liberty on it. And I used to, just scribble all day and draw and draw. And I would ended up ripping up all of my drawings because I didn't actually like any of my work. And that hasn't changed. Actually, I'm still my worst critic.
So after you decided that you wanted to be a storyboard artist, what path did you choose to get there?
I decided that I was going to give storyboarding another chance after a few things had happened. One, I was hired as a toy designer for a company that no longer exists in New York. And then after that, I got hired at Disney as a character artist. And I was relocated from New York to Los Angeles. And I didn't really fit into the corporate world. And when the layoffs came, I was more than happy to invest everything that I had learned about sequential storytelling, character design, acting with a pencil, all the things that we actually learned when I was at Disney. And so these are little skills that I picked up and just added to my arsenal, if you will.
After you left Disney, you got your first storyboard job on Too Fast, Too Furious. What happened after that?
After Too Fast and Furious, I started with an agency out in Los Angeles called Storyboards Inc., doing commercials. I did a huge amount of commercials for soft drinks, for cars, for any kind of product that you could name. And that was, to me, really fulfilling work because I get to draw and make it say something, make it tell a story.
At what point in your career did you move to Georgia?
There was a time in living in Los Angeles where the work wasn't coming as frequently as I needed it to at that time. It's this very seasonal kind of job unless you're in a union, and I'm not in a union. And I got a job opportunity to work for Cartoon Network, and they offered to relocate me from Los Angeles, where I was living, to where I am now in Atlanta, and that was in 2004, I think. And I was hired by Cartoon Network in a similar capacity that I was hired in at Disney. Only the company or the group that I was working for was in charge of doing media or advertisements, full color ads, translights that you might see at a train station or subway, DVD covers, game covers. Those particular jobs allowed me to flex a different set of muscles than I would normally if I were storyboarding.
Throughout your career, did you have any mentors who helped you along the way?
Well, as a child, my first mentor was a playwright named Steve Carter. My mother worked for a theater company in New York called the Negro Ensemble Company. And Steve was like the coolest uncle, and he was always showing me new tricks. And he's actually my first art teacher. He bought me this book called Bridgman's Anatomy, which actually, this is the old beat up copy that he gave me. And, he perfect penmanship. He signed it nicely. Yeah, this is amazing.
Wow.
And so I kind of aspired to be like him in that sense. He was well educated. He was very cultured and creative. And so that was my first one. My second and I guess third were John Loder and Bob McKnight. They were former Disney artists.
Any tips on how to find a mentor for people who may not have one?
It is actually way easier to find mentors than it used to be. I mean, I'm I'm a '70s kid, so we didn't really have the internet until I was in my 20s. But during my 30s and 40s, I've been contacted by lots of people who are looking for mentors through my website, through Facebook, even back in the MySpace days. Um, it's easier to communicate than it was, and I don't have a mentor necessarily, but I always let the kids know, you can, if you ever have any questions, I'm just at the end of the phone, the other end of a phone, or on the other side of an email.
What are some of the tools of the trade that you use?
The tools of the trade, well, the basic tools are pencil and a piece of paper, but the rest of it is understanding camera angles, understanding perspective drawing, understand figure drawing, and these are talents that I have to constantly work at to keep sharp. When I'm storyboarding a scene, it is critical for me to read the script and to speak with uh, whoever I'll be working with, whether it's producer, designer, director, and the most important thing above pencil and paper actually is communication, the ability to communicate your ideas, and the ability to draw out uh, uh, um, communication in others.
What software do you use that helps you create?
Well, I use Photoshop, but it is not 100% necessary. I do it just so that I can. It just helps me manage the volume of frames that I have to do for each job. I average between 50 and anywhere between 50 and 80 frames for any given project. Someone recently reached out to me on Facebook last week and asked, "What do I, what kind of software do you use? What do you think about this software? Do you think about that software?" And I said, right now, all you need is your brains and your hands and a piece of paper, and your ability to communicate. Um, I also use Procreate on my iPad Pro, and that gives me the ability to work in layers while I'm out in the field or I'm on set, and it's very lightweight. To take it everywhere I go,
Mm-hmm.
and most of my work from this year is in here right now.
What advice do you have for others who may wish to follow in the same career path?
Advice: draw every day. Um, if you want to do storyboards, make it your business to understand the language of filmmaking. Watch the classics. And one of my mentors, Warren, that I spoke about earlier, Warren Drummond, um, he advised that I watch films with the sound turned off. That way I can focus only on the sequence of images and why that particular sequence, those particular angles, light in, etc., why they're telling the story that they tell when I don't hear any dialogue, and also to understand editing, because editing is where the movie is made. Forget what you heard.
What are some of the Georgia-based projects that you've worked on?
The biggest, probably the most recognizable, is The Walking Dead, and they shoot their projects down in Sonoya County right now. And when they call, they need storyboards done for a particular scene. I'll trek down there and have a meeting, and usually it's over in less than half an hour. I'll go down there and just take notes on what the shots need to be for the scene that they've sent to me. And what's funny is that they'll send me the script, but they won't send me the whole script. So I don't know what's going on for the rest of the show. I only know about my section. And then they plaster my name all over the script, just that way if it ever leaks, then they know who leaked it. And I've got like a $50,000 contract that I owe them if I leak any of my information. So
How was it working with them?
it's really nice working with them, because so far every episode that I've worked on, every scene that I've worked on has a different director. So I get to meet and work with a variety of people.
What are some other Georgia-based projects that you've worked on in the past?
Well, I worked with Floyd County for a spell. They're an animation company that produced Archer. And there's a ton of ad agencies that I've worked with here, but I've done commercials for Smith & Wesson, for AMC's The Walking Dead, Microsoft Surface. As a freelancer, as a storyboard artist, I did something for Turner Classics 20th anniversary commercial, that'll be on my website.
Is there any difference to working here in Georgia as opposed to LA?
In Los Angeles, you have ad agencies, or you have agencies for storyboard artists that they find work for storyboard artists. There's so much productions going on. There's video game production, there's commercials, there's film work, whereas it's not quite set up that way here. And I think that some of the film productions that happen in Georgia, they've already done their storyboards out in Los Angeles. My situation is somewhat unique in my circle because everyone in my circle is in Los Angeles. I don't really know any storyboard artists here, so I'm not really sure what their note. It'd be a good idea to compare notes, but I know that Georgia is a right-to-work state, and you have unions in Los Angeles, so there's that difference. But Los Angeles has agencies for storyboard artists. A few of them to name are Famous Frames, Storyboard Inc., Frameworks LA, and here we don't have that. But what we do have are the agencies, ad agencies that hire people like me that I can approach directly without a middleman of having an agency. I'm actually working more now than I did in Los Angeles, but I don't know if that's because there are fewer storyboard artists living here. I don't want to say that because I don't want to jinx myself.
What are some of the projects that you've worked on that you're most proud of?
I have a book called I'm a Brilliant Little Black Boy that I illustrated with Betty K. Bynum and her son Josh Drummond, and they're the writers, and that came out last year. And also there's a comic book that I'm working on called Brother Man, Dictator of Discipline. It's a 3-part graphic novel. We're working on part 2 right now, but the first book is full color, 108 pages. I'm the colorist. Mm-hmm. So I work with a good friend of mine and partner, Dawood Anyabwile, and that's something that I'm very proud of because it's a labor of love. You can find my work at theartofmcgee.com. I've got some illustration work on there. I've got some storyboard stuff on there, a couple of videos. Go check it out, and I hope you enjoy it.